We are talking about CM Punk, talking about all the drama that has happened in the last week since All In. Since there was an altercation backstage between Jack Perry and CM Punk. Let me remind everyone that's watching in the future, comments down below. I want to hear your opinions about it. And we've got people live watching this. This is part of the whole Yeah Hangout stream. Just keep cool with each other, because there's going to be a lot of different opinions, and we just want to keep it cool. That's all. We can all have a different opinion, and that's all cool. So just last week, All In, Jack Perry goes out for his match, and we saw it. We was watching it on the stream together, and I said straight away, that's not going to go down very well, as Jack Perry indicated something about, this is real glass. Look, this is real glass. Cry me a river is what he said. That it was a reference to an altercation that him and CM Punk had a couple of weeks ago on Collision, where CM Punk was reportedly asked, even though Jack Perry had it cleared, to use glass. I don't know the ins and outs of that situation, and I don't want to necessarily speculate, but the idea is CM Punk talked to Jack Perry about using glass and said, basically, we don't do that here, not wanting to use real glass on Collision. That was the wrestling show. Whether he'd actually been told or not, I think is up for debate, and I want to try and deal with facts here if we can. After that, there was an altercation backstage just before CM Punk's match, which caused him to nearly not go out. It was Samoa Joe who had to eventually talk to Punk to get him to go out. There was panic within the company at the biggest show that they've ever had, and your starting act isn't about to go on, and no one else was ready to go on. Absolute chaos backstage. There's reports of Tony Khan, when he was talking at the end of Collision, said it's the most unsafe he's ever felt. And yeah, there's kind of is that everything that's sort of the facts about it without going into anything else?
Yeah, I think that's sort of, there's so many different viewpoints and different accounts of that story. But that is the basic overall story arc of what's happened. Pretty much bang on the nose, I think.
Yeah, just try to keep it to sort of the basic facts, and then we can talk about speculation about everything else, because why not? What are your thoughts on it all, Andy? It's a bit of a mess, right?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, really, it's just such a shame that coming out that it almost overshadows what was a really historic event. It should never have got to that point. I'm sure we'll go into the kind of like the viewpoint side of what might have been said or what was done, etc. But you know, it seems like CM Punk, or Phil Brooks, whatever you want to call him, is an opinionated guy who doesn't really react the way that a lot of people would hope he would react, and he'll probably be that way his entire life. Sometimes you can manage that out with someone. Sometimes that's just who they're destined to be. But as I say, for me, the biggest takeaway was, unfortunately, it overshadowed, in terms of headlines coming out, what should have been the biggest night of AEW, other than its obviously creation, inception, etc. But even to the extent where it almost overshadowed a massive monumental night for British wrestling as well. So it's a shame that we have to talk about this in terms of, instead of how good was last week.
And it was great.
It was.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that's my 2 cents.
That's all good, man. Have you got out to add to that, Dan, before we go into more details and talk about some of the smaller parts of it, I guess?
I think what happened at All In was completely regrettable from so many different standpoints. But again, you look at what happened at All Out 2021.
Yeah.
Just
a year ago. No, it's 2022. It was a year ago.
No, when he originally sort of got suspended.
No,
it was 2022. It was 2021.
Yeah, it was just last year. Oh, yeah, he waits every year to have a blow up. Yeah.
And you just look at the points that 2022, he has a big sort of historic pay-per-view in All Out. At the time, I think it was AEW's Record Gate.
Yeah.
And there is a big aftermath. We've had exactly the same thing again. Unbelievable pay-per-view being overshadowed by politics.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be the case.
I mean, I'm kind of pleased that this one didn't happen in the fans' eyes. I mean, All Out, the biggest problem with that, and in a lot of respects, I think All Out was worse because it was him using his public persona to get a message out there, which didn't leave people the ability to defend themselves. And that was a huge problem I had with All Out. If you look at everything that was said about Colt Cabana's had no comeback at this. He hasn't said anything. He's kept quiet and just left it be. Yeah, stum. And CM Punk didn't. I don't think that's fair to give anyone that opportunity or a platform where you can sort of spout this stuff off and not give someone an opportunity to defend themselves. Whereas Colt has obviously done the right thing in the way that people should behave within a company. Now, I see a lot of stuff out there about Nick Jackson and the Young Bucks and stuff. I think we have to remember that they're not involved in this. No. This was something that happened last year. There was a warning put in place, and in any sort of company, you're going to have a code of conduct. And be that what that code of conduct was at the time of All Out happening may have looked very different to what it is now because the company had never had to deal with this circumstance. And I assume that actually part of some of the safeguarding processes that were put in place was to ensure that the company had this code of conduct so that not just the employer, but the employees knew exactly what they had to follow. And clearly in this, CM Punk has not followed it, as well as the fact that it's not his first time of doing it. And I see a lot of this as well about Tony Khan should have fired him in the first place. Tony Khan, blah, blah, blah. I don't think that's very fair on people. In any sort of employer, I don't think if someone makes a mistake, you fire them. I see a lot of people saying Jack Perry should be fired. He made a mistake. He should be made an example of. Absolutely. But should he be fired for what would be his first offense? Would it have been right for CM Punk to have been fired on his first sort of offense? Or do we give people the opportunity to grow and learn from the mistakes? Because in any sort of employment that I've ever worked in, that's been what's happened. What are your thoughts on that, guys? I'll give you quite a bit there.
I agree with it. I did see an article where Jack Perry said he said what he said on screen to generate as much heat as possible, but he didn't intend for it to go down like a lead balloon with Punk. Mm-hmm. But if you're saying something like that on a platform as big as that, how are you not going to generate heat with CM Punk if he has explicitly told you, don't be using glass?
And I think the history of people saying stuff to Punk, it's not generally gone down well. But interestingly, he's the person has made a career of shooting at the hip and these pipe bomb promos and blaring that line between reality and story and entertainment. Yeah, he can't take it back the other way. Do you know what I mean? Andy, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the people who are often the most outspoken can't take it the other way. And, you'll always have that mate who is so gobby and so self-righteous and is happy to dish it out. But the minute it comes back, it's never ends well. But in terms of Punk, as I said before, I think when you look at his biggest moments in terms of his career, you're talking, one of them is, we'll never know how worked the original pipe bomb promo was, where he sat on stage, how edited was that, how known about was it in terms of what he was going to say. There's certainly theories and conspiracy theories that would say it was all, they knew exactly what he was going to say, they knew when to cut his mic off, they knew how to get the most buzz. He then, his second biggest, arguably, he was coming back to the wrestling industry and doing his first kind of speech back in AEW, which generated a lot of buzz. He is a buzz magnet. He knows what to do. But in this circumstance, what I would say to Dan's is if that's a case of Jack didn't know that Punk would spout off on it, but that's not a worldwide known that conversation happened. That's a backstage thing that he was said, actually, don't do this because you'll take years off your career. It's a very dangerous thing to do. So he said it knowing that there's only a certain amount of people that would know what he was alluding to, because the people in the stadium didn't know what was said. And that side of things, and certainly from my perspective, I don't try and read too much into the dirt sheets and stuff. So I saw it and just thought, that's a weird thing to say, and then realized it must be a bar, which is why I reached out to you guys and said, someone's got to explain this to me. So I think he knew exactly what he was doing, and I think he might have been trying to pop the boys in the back at trying to get a rise out of someone that he knew would take the bait, unfortunately.
Poke the bear.
Mm-hmm. Maybe so, man. Maybe so. So you think Perry was doing this for... Because there's a lot of heat on the Young Bucks for this, and looking at the Young Bucks' reaction to the whole Punk situation, they've done a couple of call-outs on TV and stuff, but I think that most of them would have been cleared anyway. The fallout that we've seen from any sort of TV stuff happening, or the promo that CM Punk did for Hangman Page after with the action figure thing, which was and he apologized for. So again, proving that people can learn. He's got into a fight. I've lost my train of thought. Yeah. Guys, I'm going to get into all of your comments in a minute, so please do keep them writing and just keep it chill at the minute. Sorry, go on, Dan.
I was just going to say, I did put, as soon as we started talking about it, I did put a poll on the YouTube community.
Nice.
And the question was, do you think CM Punk deserved to be fired? And
do you think? There's a good question.
Yeah, so we had 66% of people, 2/3 of you didn't think he deserved to be fired, and a third, 33%, thought he did.
Wow. Where do you guys stand on that? I think he should have been fired because it was a repeat offense in terms of the way he handles himself backstage. I believe at that point, and with the evidence that they had, I believe it was gross misconduct at that point. What do you guys think?
Yep.
Yeah, I would tend to. And the thing I would also say is, from what Tony Khan released in the statement and what he said on Collision or into Chicago, is it was taken externally as well to like effectively a HR company to say like, are there grounds for dismissal here? And they kind of like, they got that and they did an investigation, and a disciplinary panel, whoever was on that panel, decided that was what was happened. So we don't know every single thing that happened accurately, because there's so many people looking for that scoop and happy to make things up, etc. And whatever. The people that backstage know what happened, and if this is deemed to be a case of we've gone through a disciplinary process, this is the outcome of it, then in my opinion they've done their due diligence and they came to the decision that they thought was the correct one. And with that fact that they have, who are we to argue otherwise? Because they're not going to idly let one of their biggest merchandise sellers and top stars go unless there's something been done that they think deserves it. So he's done what he, and quite frankly, I've been a critic at times of Tony Khan, but I think he's handled this in a very professional manner, which is not before time. So well done to him for doing what must be a very difficult decision.
Oh yeah, I mean he's lost one of his money earners. There's evidence that suggests CM Punk draws ratings, and he's had to let him go. And I'm sure that he didn't want to do that. But again, I think the first time, I don't think they had the processes in place and the clarity that they needed to be able to say this is what's happening. And I think that after that, they've put them processes in place, which would be the same with any company. I've dealt with. With younger companies that haven't had the policies in place, and part of what I've done as a union rep when I've gone and defended employees in the past is said there's no clarity here. There's no you're complaining about what this. Let's use for example, you're complaining about what this person is putting on social media, but you are not telling that person what they're allowed or not allowed to put on social media at any point. So without clarity, then no one's to blame. Does that make sense? Dan, what do you think? Should CM Punk be fired?
I think that it was deserved. I don't want anyone to lose the job unless it is deserved. He's got a track record of sort of blowing up in people's faces over things. I mean, I did put a video in our group chat earlier on, and it goes back over 10 years, and it's Triple H shooting or supposedly shooting from the hip on CM Punk. And it's talking about you don't care about the business, you only care about bettering yourself.
Yeah.
And looking back at that now, it shows the hatred that them two guys had between each other. And a lot of it now makes sense because 10 years down the line is working for a completely separate company and having exactly the same issues that Triple H or Paul Levesque, if you prefer, is saying in a promo in the ring in a different company.
Mm-hmm. So let's bring it round to, because I agree. I've sort of made it clear about what I think of CM Punk. Before we go into sort of what CM Punk is going next, let's talk about a little bit about Jack Perry. Should Jack Perry be fired in this situation? And what are your guys' opinions on that? Dan?
Yeah,
I was going to say, Andy, go for it.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, it's all circumstantial. Like, we don't know exactly what happened backstage. So if it was a case of he walked back through and was met with someone who put him in a chokehold or whatever is supposed to have happened, then what are you supposed to do in that situation? But, again, it's all kind of like we don't know the 100% what happened. And if it was the fact that CM Punk was actually fired because he started throwing monitors around and screaming in people's faces that he quits and was going to walk out, well, Jack Perry, by the sounds of it, didn't do any of that. He literally said a comment that annoyed someone and was met with potentially physicality. Now, I don't think, he should maybe be reprimanded if he went off script or did it on purpose. And then maybe we say, like, in the future, we will be watching you. This is a verbal warning, like, how it would happen in any other workplace. You created a situation that could have been avoided through your actions. And in the future, if you're found to be doing it again, we'll go through a disciplinary process. But it is very difficult to say yes on that one. Like, he gets a warning for me. That I would say.
Yeah, I think, again, I've sort of made it clear of my sort of opinions of you give people a chance. It's not right to just say, everyone's saying like Tony Khan's weak for not firing him after All Out. And I'm like, no, you give people a chance. You tell people this was wrong and you say, don't let it happen again. And if it happens again, then what do we do? And in terms of Perry's situation with that, I think the whole company needs to stop shooting on each other. Yes, I know it can make angles and stuff like that, but you've got to be careful. And they put in a procedure recently about using blood and fighting in the crowd and all that sort of stuff, which people were panicking on the internet at the time that was going to change AEW's product. And it hasn't at all. All it's done is it means that them spots and angles have to go through a producer. And if they don't go through a producer, then they could get fined or whatever it is. I don't know the exact details.
Reprimanded in some way.
Reprimanded, yeah, absolutely. But that's led to a slightly more focused product because we're not getting the same spot happening in every match as well. They're working closer with the producers to do that, and I think it's exactly the same in this situation. You need to sort of reprimand people and make an example of him as well. I don't necessarily think that's firing, but to say this has to stop. We cannot be upsetting each other in the back if there's no reason for it to happen at anything. Right, Chris. Here's a good idea. Here's a good example. Christian Cage. Do you think he goes out on that ramp and starts talking about Nick Wayne's dad without talking to Nick Wayne about it first? Never. Of course he doesn't. Of course he doesn't, because we know that Christian Cage is a professional, and we know that that's going to upset someone. It's all about. It's a scripted show. It's just a performance. That's all it is, and they need to make sure that they're clearing stuff and not just upsetting people on a public platform. So sorry, there was a bit of stuff there. But Dan, what do you think? Do you think he should be fired? How do we deal with the Perry situation? It's hard to say, man.
It is hard, and I think out of everyone, I think Jack Perry might have gone into business for himself in a way by making the comment. It might have been authorized or been signed off by the producer of his match, but that person might not have known what has gone on between Jack Perry and CM Punk previously. So you could look at the producer of the match and go, why did you sign off on it? But if there isn't any background into that sign off, then it could be that Jack Perry's done it to try and poke the bear in CM Punk without any comeback on him, because he's asked the producer of the match and the producer signed off on it. Yeah, if you ask your boss if you can do something and they say yes,
I've never seen anyone mention that. You're right. We don't know if it was signed off by the producer or not, and just something that but interesting. Like, no one else has sort of brought that up. So thanks, Dan. I am gonna get through all your comments, but we are wrapping up soon as well. So the other question was, Dom had made a video short earlier today saying CM Punk. I wish Dom was here now. CM Punk will be back in the WWE or New
If Dom
Japan.
was here, you would be going on until 3 o'clock, and you would be missing all out.
Oh, mate, we would be breaking my code of conduct for me and Dom. What do you think is for the future of CM Punk? Is he going back to WWE?
I think that was his last match. I'll keep it simple. I don't think we'll see CM Punk in a wrestling ring again. I think we might see him on TV, but I don't think we'll see him have a match.
Okay, cool. That's fair enough. So you don't think he'll do any indies, any...
he doesn't need to. I don't think he needs to.
Do you think... we'll find your opinion first, Andy, first.
Yeah, I think it's more of a case of how jaded he is about the industry, or whether it's more jaded towards AEW as a company and that situation, and how much that's kind of like filtered through to his love for wrestling. He's never really struck me as someone who is in it because he has to be, and he does things on his own terms. And we saw that last time he's done comic books, he did UFC and met the UFC stuff to work out. But geez, like I wouldn't step into a UFC ring with anyone. You couldn't pay me enough money to do it because I wouldn't come out in any good shape at all. So anyone who does,
£4 million quid.
Well, okay, I'll step in there for someone to punch me in the face and knock me out once. I think we see him in Japan. I really do. I think we'll see him in some shape or form in Japan, but it becomes a bit sticky when the main Japanese promotion is also so intrinsically linked with AEW. So that obviously does that. But the question that he kind of hinted at is, would he appear in WWE?
Yeah.
I don't know is the answer, because do you really want what sounds like someone who's going into business with them for themselves in a company where generally everyone's fairly well behaved, especially on camera, because they do have those processes in place because they've been going since the 50s and they've had those examples and they managed to keep them very much under lock and key these days if it does happen. And we don't even know if it does happen anymore. So I don't think you want someone who at this stage of his life is happy to shoot from the hip and cause as much trouble as possible if it suits him. So no, I don't think we see him again in the WWE ring either.
I mean, I wouldn't go back to a company if I hated the guy booking.
I think that's it. There's several parts to it. I think if he goes back to the WWE, one, I think WWE at the minute have more negative media attention than they've had since the Benoit situation in the last year. And specifically, I'm talking about Vince McMahon and that trial. And we're not just talking about the wrestling media and sort of sports media. We're talking mainstream media. That is Wall Street Journal type stuff right there that everyone's going to know about. So why put the company's name into even more potential risk with someone like CM Punk, who again, this action has been on the Times and stuff like this. There are like, the Independent had an article about toxic people comparing CM Punk to Donald Trump, didn't they? That Sam shared earlier. So I don't think WWE would want that at all. I also don't think WWE would want to upset the superstars. If you look at what Seth Rollins said, he said like the worst thing that anyone has said about CM Punk. No one in AEW has said anything as bad as CM Punk is a cancer. And Seth Rollins is one of your top 5 guys in the company.
Even his friends as well, wasn't it? Because like CM Punk was good friends with Corey Graves, and Corey Graves, when you listen to him talk about it, said he was very upset because he basically just completely froze him out and never spoke to him, even though he had nothing to do with anything. So even his so-called allies might not be necessarily happy to see him back in the company.
So why would you risk that disrepute? The question I have with New Japan is, New Japan has seen now the 2 other major promotions in the world, and New Japan's very much a company built on respect, and they've seen this guy get kicked out of 2 companies now. Also, I don't think Punk would want to go to WWE. There's a reason he signed with AEW, and that's because he was absolutely done with WWE after the getting fired at his wedding. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So much to unpick there.
It does muddy the water, though, doesn't it? Sorry, with the that backstage thing that he did for WWE through ESPN or whoever it was, that he did kind of come back and talk about the product. So it's a weird one, because I would have thought if he's completely done with the company and didn't want anything to do with them, he wouldn't have put his name even towards something like that. So it muddies the water massively.
Was that him getting more involved with Fox, because it was a Fox product, wasn't it? As
the
opposed
contract
to WWE.
was with Fox, not WWE or any affiliate of WWE.
But you're right; he's still talking about the product.
Yeah.
So he is affiliated with it to some sense. It's a really interesting debate, guys. Sorry, go on.
So I was just going to say, if I'm New Japan, would I want to book CM Punk, who our biggest leader in the US market have just fired? So if I want to keep my American partner happy in AEW, would I want to employ the person they have just fired after a big issue like this? And if I'm New Japan, I'm staying as far away from Punk as I can.
I think. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, with the New Japan thing, you've got to remember, though, is that his gripe seems to be against certain people, and yes, it seems to be that those people spread out, but it seems to be more of a case of like he wanted to have his voice said, along with like Collision, as like he was a locker room leader for that particular show. He gave some advice. Someone didn't like the advice to the extent where they went on a pay-per-view and kind of called him out on it. Whereas in New Japan, he might just go across because that's my only litmus test as to how much he actually likes and loves wrestling, would be a case of like, it's a very pure, respectable company where he knows he'd be going across. He would do a couple of exhibition matches and maybe bring it down. I also think I'm saying that because he was recently at the at that award ceremony. Is it like cauliflower something or other, where he said, my goal was never WWE. My goal was Japan. And to come back from Japan as someone that people then knew. So he kind of alluded to it, and it seems a bit strange for him to have said that when he probably knew what was coming, because that was literally just in the last few days that he's done that appearance. So it would be strange if he didn't, if for him name dropping that and then disappears into the ether sort of thing.
Yeah, very interesting. I don't think he'll want that to be his last match either way. I don't think he won't want to be affiliated with whether it's WWE or AEW. I think he'll have something outside of it. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a GCW show, right? Because he did that appearance, didn't he, before he was in AEW, where he got dressed up in a hoodie and attacked someone with the GTS in Chicago. So I can see something like that happening. I don't know. It's a really difficult situation. I want to get to some comments because we're going to have to wrap the stream up soon. But also, don't forget, guys, we say that we haven't got any sort of video evidence. We clearly do. The pictures on screen of the backstage at All In. So there we go. That was a still taken from the video, dudes. Let's see. Christian, with our last talk about tattoo, says, I was thinking about getting a John Cena tattoo, but the biggest problem I will have with it is that no one will see it.
But
you can't see me. Well played, Christian. Made me chuckle in the inside. Titans a CM Punk fan. I haven't been keeping up with the comments. I have no idea who's fighting what. Let's see. But let's broach it. DJ GAHY, welcome. Top G, Ali G in a purple trackie. Nice. Yes, give me a whole panel. Nice to see an English wrestling podcast. Thought it was going to be an American when I seen the thumbnail. Nah, man, we went to we hung out at Mania. It was nice. Just all from Yorkshire. And Andy, where you're Newcastle, up north.
I'm up in Newcastle, northeast.
There we go, man. There we go. Thank you. Welcome to the channel, bro. CM Punk has been a cancer since he got there. Vince will not be able to contain him, so you'll soon see him on Impact, says Joby, the one we haven't talked about. Could
one that I don't think could afford him.
I don't think he's going to have the same value, is he?
No.
I mean, no one's going to pay him the money that AEW, New Japan, or WWE can pay him, can they?
No.
I'd assume. Do you like the latest version of CM Punk or his culty, long-haired, Manson-like stable, straight-edge society one? think people are fascinated by the current version of Punk. I just don't know if it's a good version of him, full stop. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What's your guys' favourite?
I quite liked the ECW version of Punk.
Okay.
Just because it was very raw at the time, and it was you didn't have a negative view of him at that time.
What about you, Andy? You got a favourite version of Punk?
Yeah, I did like the straight edge society. I thought that was really cool. And even when he kind of like got up and went for the leader of the Nexus, that was also cool. I've just realised the striking resemblance that you had to the straight edge society CM Punk era, Ant.
What? Do I? You know, I wasn't even watching wrestling at that time, so I can't really comment on it. I've enjoyed his AEW run. What's been on screen? I think his stuff with MJF was outstanding. Some of the best storytelling in wrestling last year. It's just a shame that this is the way it has to be. It's like wherever Punk goes, he tries to blow up the whole company. First WWE and now AEW. Heck, maybe he should change his name. Why did they even put the comment on screen? Why? Maybe he should change his name to Osama Punk Laden. Maybe he should. No, they might not be involved, but they are EVPs, so they do have some leverage. They do, but they're not involved in this situation. I think there's a lot of people saying, yes, this is another thing to say. People are taking sides backstage. We all take sides with anything. That's why we have tribalism. That's why we discuss things. Whenever we hear a topic, we are always going to choose a side we either want to believe from the information we have, or we lean more to one side of, and we can understand the other side, and that's fine. I don't think the Young Bucks are anywhere near this. You know, yes, it might be Jack Perry trying to impress them, but the Young Bucks can't be blamed for that unless they are going about backstage slagging off CM Punk. But I've seen no evidence of that, so we can't just make that up in our own heads. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Did you see Khan saying he feared for his life? Punk can't. I'm not surprised. Come on. CM Punk could break Tony Khan in half, even if he was on coke. I mean, people on coke could fight, but like Punk could kick his ass. Punk can't fight to save his life, and he is not this big mob boss. How could he fear for his life? A 5-year-old could beat Punk. If he's got into a grapple with some, look, these are professionals. They kick my ass if there's no. I'd be terrified. I'd fear for my life. If he's like slapping someone around in front of Khan, you'd be cacking yourself, right? You know, and then you're trying to get this guy to go out there to perform to 80,000 people, the high pressure situation. I mean.
He's a guy, he's had UFC fights. I know he didn't do particularly well in them, but that's not to say that he couldn't absolutely destroy. You said the most impressive thing about wrestlers, what you've got to remember is they basically train to make it look like they could hurt someone. And you've got to remember, basically, they have to think, this would hurt someone. How can I not hurt someone? So they've got to undo it. There is always that chance that they could just go, you know what, I'll actually just do it for real. And you just have, like, your nose would be the other side of your face.
And Tony Khan's not a fighter, man. He's never been in a fight.
No, but you've got Samoa Joe in your back pocket. You just tell him, I'll make you world champion.
Yeah. Get on my side. Oh, there we go. Next year's All In, we're having Tony Khan versus. I'm trying to make an analogy to the Donald Trump Vince McMahon match So Tony Khan with Samoa Joe in his corner. Who's CM Punk's boss?
Dixie Carter.
Dixie Carter with CM
Next
Punk
year.
in the corner. There we go, man. Can't make anyone fear for his life, especially when he lost both of his UFC matches. Yeah, but when shit's kicking off around you, like, it doesn't matter who you are, you can still, like, I think fear for your life, he probably didn't feel he was about to die. But it's a term of expression, which means he was cacking himself.
Yeah.
Tony Khan probably had a little poo. But
I was just about to say growing a tail.
Yeah. It's better to say I feared for my life than say I shit myself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or admitting that. Is that a good way of looking at it, Andy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny, but true.
Exactly, says Jake. But apparently Khan feared for he just did a little poop. Just think of it like that, Jake. He did a little poop. So Funk for POTUS in 2024, free Pepsi for everyone. I love that comment earlier. I think Matt Jackson needs to get a Coca-Cola tattoo. This could have been diffused by Tony. The EVPs, Punk, etc. last year can't poke the bear and accept zero repercussions. Punk has an anger issues, but other parties should have diffused it ages ago. A lot to unpick in that. I think it, in a sense, it has been diffused by Tony, which is why this has happened. The way it's happened is by the processes being put in place that has led to Punk being fired. And if them processes, but then I'm speculating, and I don't like that. I don't think the processes were in place to get rid of Punk before, and that's why they didn't.
Yeah, it's a legitimate argument. I think it makes complete sense. You've got this brand new company, everyone seems to be working together. You don't really need a disciplinary procedure. But after all out, what happened there, that enforced a disciplinary procedure, I think.
Yeah, now there was. I only tried to state facts of it, but I believe that there was at that point a disciplinary council put together after all out. So if Tony Khan's done that, yes, he could have diffused the situation, but in a way he has done, and he's protected his company by ensuring that there's no repercussions on this, which also protects the other employees as well.
Yeah.
Am I making too many jumps there?
No, it makes complete sense.
Okay. Didn't Punk want out anyway? Maybe. We heard that Andrade smacked Sami Guevara because he wanted out. That was reported. How true that is, I don't know. But Tony Khan said, no, that's not happening. Hey up, Wang, nice to see you. Oh, yes, it's Titan. Also, there were zero issues with Punk until he worked with Hangman. That's right. That was the first example where shots were fired, and Punk clearly doesn't like that.
Yeah.
So you've got an example of it there. Although Hangman's been very quiet afterwards, so
Hangman's been professional. He's keeping himself quiet. He might have taken a few shots, but he might have done it in the heat of the moment and realised he's made a mistake. So he stepped back and keeping himself out of that firing line or out of the limelight for negative press.
Maybe so, man. Maybe so. I believe that. I think he's handled it well. But that's the thing. Like, everyone's having to go about the Young Bucks. Like, they've done a few little shots on TV. I would say Punk's done exactly the same back when he returned with the making some Bucks comment or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But in terms of like media, and CM Punk hasn't either. Actually, CM Punk hasn't been. It's all people in the parties that are supporting and that's leaking stuff to the media, I guess. So. I believe Perry purposely done this to get Punk fired because it's Punk. He is like a big child. Perry knew when he said something that Punk would kick off. I believe a few people were doing that. Oh, that's an interesting question. Did Perry know that Punk was going to kick off? I think so. Whether it would get him fired or not, but I think Perry knew what he was doing when he said it. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I mean, how could you know? Like, you get a reaction, but like also you don't know what someone else is thinking because he'd have to have like carnal knowledge that he was going to walk back and he would be there waiting for him and stuff like that. It's maybe slightly far-fetched. He probably knew there would be some sort of reaction. But there's no way he'd know that was a reaction because if someone had done that to me and I had a problem with someone, I would like to think what I would do is go, cool, I've got a match that's coming up now or next that's going to open the show. It's our biggest show. I would say, I heard what you said. Don't worry. I'll catch you after I've had my match and see you in a bit. And then I would make that person stew that I've just said that and know that I'm coming to have a chat with them. And then I would go and say, like, what are you talking about? I said what I said previously because I'm trying to protect you. You want to carry on like that? Fine. You do what you want. Take years off your career. See you later. But you could have got that reaction. You could have, but you didn't. Apparently,
that was an adult reaction that you just did. That was an amazing adult reaction. That should have been exactly what CM Punk did.
Well, I'm 34. I do learn from mistakes in the past and stuff. But I don't think you can ever say that he knew 100% that he would get fired because Punk could have said what I just said there and surprised a few people and grown. But hey, it was a pressure cooker. 80,000 people waiting for you to go out. Maybe he just lost his head.
Really good point, man. Really good point. Punk quit apparently backstage. I believe Punk was going to leave if Khan didn't fire him too. I think Punk would have refused to come back no matter what anyway. Punk didn't seem happy, and I don't know that he would have signed a contract, but that's all speculation. I don't know what's in the head of Punk. He probably likes the money as well. I've been in Punk's situation before, and it's a completely different situation on that side of things. There was obviously frustration with him. He was pissed off. He felt on the outs of a company that he wanted to lead, I guess, and maybe that's part of the problem. How are you been today? Punk clearly has a massive anger issues. He needs to learn a better way of dealing with things. After Perry being a douche on TV, Punk should have told Khan and got him to solve it, but instead Punk tries to solve it himself. I think Punk has shown examples where he has learned. Like, we've heard that after that Hangman shot that was fired after Collision about the action figures, he contacted Hangman and apologized for that and said, look, this was taken out of hand. I was shooting from the hip. And so we have heard that there's been some sort of action, but then obviously when it's in that pressure cooker situation, which Andy described perfectly, he can't keep it cool, I'd say. Hi, I've been good. CM Punk is to blame. Khan is to blame, but Perry started all this and is to blame too. I think it's equal on all sides. Jack Perry knows how Punk is and knew he would react like this. I don't know if he like. I think you said it great, Andy. You can't. He knew he was going to piss him off. He knew there was going to be something, but don't necessarily know that was going to come up to some sort of fisticuffs. I think. Fair way of saying it. Smith, lovely to see you, mate. Thanks for joining us. I think the nail on the coffin is what this happened at Wembley, and it's rumored that there was some sort of CCTV of what happened. Well, yeah, and if there are going to be problems in Gorilla or whatever, I think it's called something else in AEW, then maybe they need to get cameras more, not just at Wembley where it's sort of thing. Who knows?
Yeah.
Protecting yourself. When people get fired from their own boss or manager, from their own workplace, that means that people who are the worker, though, cannot come back to the company. I'd assume that was one. I mean, he could come back if the boss is to allow it to happen, I'd say.
If all parties agree.
Yeah, but I can't see that happening.
No.
People trying to provoke Punk backstage because he will respond because he is the most mature, because he isn't the most mature person ever. Punk is to blame, but it's not just him to blame. Punk doesn't do flight; he does fight. Yeah, and I'm not saying that Perry isn't to blame in this situation, Jake. Absolutely not. But I think his disciplinary needs to be handled differently than someone that's been told not to do that. Does that make sense? Has Jack Perry been told not to shoot on the hip at TV? Has there been a company issue to say that they shouldn't shoot on TV? I think that's where the problem is. That's where there needs to be some, because no one would do it in WWE.
No.
Just to play devil's advocate, by the way, if you're CM Punk, and it's been widely reported that he wasn't picked up from the airport and made his own way to the hotel, etc. And he did that because he wanted to spend a night with his family or his wife. You're a guy who is probably seen as a bit of a pariah in the company, and you have your critics and things like that. And it's widely known that you're opinionated and you are trying to help people within the industry learn from mistakes that have been there. And you get a flight across. It's not a nice flight for anyone who's done it, the US to the UK or vice versa. It takes its toll on you. You then get to a country where you know it a little bit, but you have to make your own way somewhere, and fans are shoving phones in your face and wanting to get a picture of you. You then turn up to do your match and find out that someone who's a colleague is basically taking the piss out of you on national TV. And then you probably get some other colleagues saying, "Oh, he's goading you," and you're full of adrenaline because you've got 80,000 people waiting for you. You're about to have an opening match for a pay-per-view. It's a huge moment in your career and the company's career. And as you say, you're then met by someone just before you're about to go through, verbally taking the piss out of you, and not even trying to hide it because of what he said. Yes, you shouldn't react with anger, But also at the same point, if this person knows that you are prone to that, there is an argument to say that maybe, just maybe, the producer should have said, let's just move you over here until he gets out of the way, because this is not going to end well. So I think there are mistakes, and I will never make any kind of excuse for someone who uses, physical altercations as their way of talking and things through. But maybe if you know that person is like that, manage the situation a little bit better, move them out of the way, and all this could have been avoided. Again, that's making an excuse for someone playing devil's advocate. He was pushed a little bit to the extreme there.
He was pushed to extreme, absolutely, yeah. A really difficult circumstance, and but there should have been the things in place to take him away. But obviously, he's done what he did. It's the way he reacted, I guess, is ultimately the thing. And yes, he has been pushed to extreme, but it's the way he reacted is the problem. I think. I'm going to have to get off soon, guys, because I've got All Out to cover. But let's get through some more comments. Exactly, that's my opinion. Jack Perry could have purposely done this. He certainly could to get him fired. Still think Tony Khan needs to step up more, not only when he personally gets put in danger, says Titan. Heel turn. Yes, I think that it's not just Tony. It's the entire company. They need to have a more clear structure. WWE has it, and a lot of them live in fear because of that. Because if they break that structure, then they get disciplined in whatever way that is, be that taken off TV, be that fines. They're an established company that's been there for a while.
Look at the Mandy Sachs incident.
Mandy Rose, yeah.
They was doing sort of content which was not family-friendly PG stuff, and because of that, was released.
That's it. Yeah.
People did argument about the Paige Saraya situation with the leaked content, but that wasn't publicly putting it out there.
Yeah.
That was she was completely hacked. It was out of her control. Yeah. So people sort of said, well, I wasn't Paige sacked, but it's completely different circumstances. It wasn't taking content, selling it to make money on it.
Saraya didn't get her asshole out on camera, but Mandy Rose did. Yeah, I agree. It's true for
talking about Andrade.
I don't think Punk is going back to WWE, maybe New Japan, but can't see it. He's going to continue his acting career. I think he'll continue his acting career and do some work in comics, but that's up to him. Whatever makes him happy, man. I want him to be happy. I do want him to be happy. I think Punk is done. Maybe does some commentary for some company. He's been doing a lot of MMA commentary, hasn't he? So I can see him continuing that as well as acting. I'm sure. Does Punk own Cult of Personality, or does AEW own it? It's sold
Living
out
Colour.
to a different company. Yeah, it's Living Colour. So Living Colour own Cult
license it to other companies or yeah.
We don't know if that's for a period of time and what that license agreement is, but we wouldn't know that. Video from Heel Turn. That's all cool, Titan. You're more than happy to plug. If I had more time, I would plug it harder. Heel Turn Wrestling. Everyone go subscribe to them, please. Matt, Living Colour on it. Yeah, thank you. Do Endeavour TKO Holdings want him? No, I don't think so.
No chance.
So would this mean that Punk could be blacklisted from pro wrestling like Tessa Black to Jimmy Abbott? No. That they're all people who have had major offences, like
speaking out movement.
Yeah, like huge sexual offences. This is someone with a shitty attitude, not just a shitty person. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Good way of saying it. Punk did get an offer from WWE prior to his AEW debut. Yeah, I don't think he's getting that now though. WWE backstage. Yeah, you're right. He did do the Fox thing. But again, that was supposed to be a thing from Fox as opposed to WWE. Oh, that was the bullshit excuse to give at the time. Excuse me, but it probably was. It might have been his way back into WWE and seeing if he could work with the people. I don't know. We don't know. Speculation. Thank God CM Punk is straight edge. Imagine drunk Punk. Oh, mate. Can you imagine if he'd had a drink at All In?
He might be one of those really happy drunks, though.
He might be. Maybe he just needs to get drunk or stoned. I don't know if he... No, he didn't. Straight edge.
No.
New Jack could just hurt anyone and get away with it, just saying. He didn't
Sonic can't employ him as a bodyguard.
I'm sure he would if he wasn't dead. I think it's the passive-aggressive approach versus Punk's confrontation one. They're both crap, to be honest. Yeah, they are, man. When people think pro wrestling is fake, made to look real, I call BS, as New Jack can literally kill anyone in a ring and probably get away with it. Maybe
almost did.
Yeah, almost did. Yeah. What was it called? Mass Transit?
Vic Grams.
Yeah, all Vic Grams. Could CM Punk realistically go back to WWE? Like, I get the spat with the WWE, but then again, Cody essentially created a rival company that was built on dissing WWE, is now back. Yeah, but Cody didn't have a crappy attitude that, well, he might have done. We don't know. But he didn't publicly. He didn't have a crappy attitude that created a negative media on the company. Is that?
Yeah.
Chicago live crowd tonight will 100% take over the show negatively. AEW is in a tough spot all night. There will be loud CM Punk chants. It's going to be a mad one, you know the deal, and I'm covering it in a minute. You're welcome, Titan Man. Tony's parting gift sells Punk Ring of Honor. It's all a work, and he's moving over to Ring of Honor, lads. Thank you all for your comments. And Andy, Dan, thank you so much for joining us for tonight's Whole Yeah Hangout. A tough one. Yeah. We got through it. We've had some fun as well. We did some trivia. I'm going to have to go.
More content, but you've got to go.
We've got to go. Unless you guys want to carry on without me, you can do. But it's late. It's up to you.
We're not stealing the viewing figures from you, mate. You need every viewing figure you can get.
I don't need viewing figures. I'm CM Punk. They call me One Bill Ant. Richard, brilliant.